The protests today caused a lot of disruption to Delhi. This was a product of, today's protest was a product of long negotiations between the protesters who have been camped outside just of Delhi and the police. And what had been agreed is that the protesters, there were thousands of tractors that had come for this tractor protest, that they would stick to agreed routes. There was 3 agreed routes, about 50 kilometres each. And we saw tens of thousands of tractors, hundreds of thousands of people walking along these routes, but there was a lot of perhaps excitement at the start of the day, and already by around 10 o'clock local time there were reports of people breaking through these police barricades to try and get towards central Delhi. Eventually that did happen. It is in the thousands. It wasn't the majority of protesters who ended up inside Delhi, but they got to, for instance, the tax office, which is like a major junction here in Delhi, and then they got all the way to the Red Fort. And what we've seen is violence break out. Police try to push them back using tear gas, but the farmers and the protesters themselves pushed back with tractors, and even some were trying to hit the police with bamboo batons, perhaps seeking some kind of revenge, because when the protesters first arrived in Delhi, they were met with force. So perhaps this time protesters decided to take their anger out on police. In the end, a few thousand did occupy the surrounds of Red Fort, but it looks like things are easing up now. But so far we've had 1 death as a result of today's violence, Bev.
And James, this anger from the farmers just seems to be growing despite negotiations on both sides. Are they any closer to resolving it?
No, we've had multiple rounds of negotiations and they're really no closer to resolving this issue at all. One of the issues was that when farmers first started protesting in the nearby states of Punjab and Haryana, they didn't feel the government was even slightly listening to them. So they took their protest to the nation's capital, and only after a while did the government finally come to the negotiation table. What the government has offered is to put these laws on hold for 18 months. But really now, these protesters are feeling reinvigorated, they're angry. They've flat out rejected. They want to hold these laws or postpone these reforms. They want them outright rejected, and they'll accept nothing less. So really at the moment it looks like that the power or the momentum is on the protesters' side.
How widely celebrated was Republic Day given the COVID pandemic?
Yeah, so today is Republic Day in India. It celebrates it's a 72nd Republic Day here in India, and that's the marking of the Constitution of India. And every year you do see large military parade. It's a celebration of India's diversity. This year they did reduce the parade itself to only about half the length, and the attendees usually get about 150,000 people watching on in the stands. This year it was only 25,000. The situation in India is relatively stable coronavirus-wise. It's getting around 15,000 cases a day. During its peak last year, we were looking at 100,000 cases a day. So things have levelled off. There's a lot of precautions being taken place now to really try and do everything possible to prevent a second, third or fourth wave here.
Indeed. And Scott Morrison penned an article widely praising the relationship on these 2 national days in our countries, but there was a veil digger China referencing the importance of the shared values between the two of us.
Yes, Prime Minister Scott Morrison wrote an opinion piece in the Times of India, a local newspaper here, and he was celebrating the 2 countries' friendships, making the point that we have Australia Day on today in Australia and Republic Day, so 2 national holidays, really kind of helping show, just how this, it's a unique kind of date that both countries really celebrating the friendship between the 2 countries. But it did make this point, talking about how the Indo-Pacific, so from Indian Ocean all the way to the Pacific Ocean, that this region needs to be governed by rules and norms and international law, not power alone. Usually when you hear this stuff about governing by international law, it's usually a subtle dig, or not so subtle dig, at China, because they've made big claims at the South China Sea that aren't, in the eyes of international law, they're not legal at all. And so we've really seen as China has flexed its muscle, Australia and India really coming together, and that was on show last year when Exercise Malabar, a major naval exercise, was on for the first time. Australia was welcomed for the first time with the other Quad members, Japan, United States.
James Oaten in New Delhi, thanks for joining us.